Hello, welcome to this awesome video with Dr. Joe Vertino, the spiritual guide, Reiki master healer, author, and musician at joevertino.org with books, music, podcasts, and guided meditation. So anyways, this video is called The Joy in Healing, and it is an example of work that I can do in my expertise in a workshop, presentation, satsang, speaking event with also questions and answering and public dialogue and guided meditation and even music if you wanted also. So anyways, enjoy the video. And these are my beautiful Tibetan prayer flags. And the one right above my head is called Compassion for the color green. So anyways, yes, let's start. So the joy in healing, you'll notice that in the title of this, it's an objective language that we're using. So in philosophy, we have objective and subjective. Objective is this is the color red, and this is the color green, and the color blue. And that in that way, those are colors, the same colors for everybody in the world. And that's objective truth. And then subjectivity is how we feel personally about the colors. If we're looking at the color red, I could feel alerted or insecure. The color green, I could feel maybe some soothing and centered. And blue, I could feel ungrounded or kind of airy, right? And all of that is subjective, but the colors themselves are chemical facts, right? Mixed with the dye of the dye in the cloth, right? And that's objective. So in this way, the language we're using is the joy in healing is objective language. So in that way, something I'm very proud of is that in healing, we could say where you are right now in your life, you may not have gotten to the joy part, right? Whether you include that for yourself, speaking for yourself right now, include that being healing in your life. But we may not have arrived yet at the joy. So that's a big part of this potential workshop presentation and video. And I know that that's something that I can accomplish with my gifts. So the joy in healing being objective language, that's something else to declare or share, is that none of this is pulling on you, meaning that it's not tied in or any conditions or any strings attached to your subjective reality. So that's a very important fact to start us out, kind of like a preamble, for this important wisdom that we're encountering. So the beauty of life is certainly not amiss or off somewhere else, in this topic of the joy in healing. That the beauty, we could say, can't be in the sense that we are beautiful. And just like we might not have realized yet the joy in life or in healing specifically, we also may not realize right now that beauty pointing just to ourself. And if you want a reason to continue on this path of healing or to start on this path of healing, that would be it. Maybe the best one ever, that we don't know that enough yet. So it's very important in any field for us to know that we're in the hands of experts. And there's a reason that we have experts. And there's in that way, so I'm an expert in the field of medicine, the field of healing, and that as lighthearted as some of this stuff around healing might seem, it's, ultimately boils down to that same level, that same foundation of expertise, and that there's traditions and lineages and everything. So I hope that so far in this video, no matter who you are, where you are, what time it is for you, that you feel a little bit more comfortable, taking this in and knowing that you deserve it. You deserve the whole thing, the joy in healing, every single word in that phrase. You deserve that. And that healing is a process, right? It's something that takes time and space and experience. but it's also something that is out of our control, even though we have a self, and that we have self-control and we can exercise that, or seemingly not exercise that, and that being kind of the lack of maybe a better choice. But in that way, that this healing that can happen or does happen perpetually, is a process, and it's out of our control. And you might even start to sense into that joy right away as you hear that truth and resonate with that truth, that there is a calling in it. So to share a little bit about my modality appropriately professionally, as someone who's claiming to be an expert in this field of healing, I'm a Reiki master, as you heard me mention at the beginning of this video. And Reiki is a Japanese compound word. REI means universal, KI means energy, and that's it. And that's something that can cause all of the healing necessary we can understand. And it's I claim in my book, The Reiki Bible, A Guide to Reiki Living, which may now be in print, that there's a chapter called Reiki and the Soul, and that Reiki can heal the soul, the eternal soul. And in that way that it's also not a religion, a person, place, or thing, and we don't have to believe in it in order for it to heal us. So in this way, this may further amplify the joy in us right now, experiencing this in this video, in this potential workshop anywhere around the world. And that basically, what's wonderful about this is that this modality, being all that we would need, so to speak, supports life in general, right? So kind of like a good parent, a good father, a good mother, and that we are included in it, in the tradition of it, yes. So carrying on together, all of this video so far, we could say maybe there's a lot of acknowledgement going on in our being, right? We're hearing this man looking very clearly into the camera and very, sitting up straight, and nothing else going on, sounds, sights, or anything. And a lot of acknowledgement is possible. And that in that way, knowing that awareness, that calling in us for something that we might not be able to put into words or understand yet, is a good thing. And that, of course, happiness, right? Lightness of being are all good things. And that it doesn't take away from, healing. All of this being the joy in healing doesn't take away from an inch of our life, at all. Our beliefs, our relationships, our reasons for the beliefs and relationships, career, all of these different things that can go on, are down to our favorite color, our favorite band, what we choose to do only on the weekend. That the joy in healing, we can say that release, that acceptance, so to speak, is something that doesn't take away from or constrict on us at all. And that we are all welcome to it. That this is, you can see, as a kind of formal invitation. And that who we are right now is what is receiving, these words, and receiving the universal vibration, in this. And you should be very proud of yourself, and kind of mark this occasion, in your heart, so to speak, or on your calendar, when I received the joy in healing. And that, what an exciting moment, in the eternal life of our soul to have, certainly. And to go a little bit further, in this, that even though we're not moving, right, we're just being and acknowledging that peace is something that I mentioned actually in the description of this potential workshop. That peace is something that I want to say can cause us to be still, but even can cause us further to rejoice. and have a dance energy inside of us and everything like this. And healing, to be a little bit corrective, can be so solemn and serious. And that in that way, of course, it is more appropriate for us to be boisterous. I refer to myself as Mr. Leo in my spiritual content, and certainly a Leo thing, right? This party, we're okay. Why not be a little bit passionate inside with the element of fire? And that know that the lake, the water is still around tomorrow, And in that way, all of that's wonderful and is conducive for joy. And that it's so important. There are things, in life that are important. And it's not just me and you. And that we'll kind of share some of these things, but you might start to be catching the drift that even though that this video can seem maybe at the beginning that it was secluded and introverted and selective, that this is an all-embracing energy. This is an all-embracing movement of the soul and of words, right? And it might seem poetic or it might seem logistical and scientific, but all of it is guaranteed good and fulfilling. So in that way, these important things to start are what? Inclusion, feeling included, being actually included. And that right now in this video, no matter what, even though, as I mentioned, that our mind might go right to the next person, the last person, the next situation or event or anything like this. But right now, what I mentioned was what? The energy, the attention, right, of acknowledgement is perhaps more easily acquired, with Dr. Joe right here and now. And I am a professional spiritual guide. So in that way that we can feel included in that, or that there is an enoughness in this awareness as it is, that it's something that isn't bound in any way. It's not something that we would have to think twice about as to its origin or its ending, that there's no conditions on it, just like I mentioned earlier, that with healing, the objective truth of it is being shared with you, even though I do encourage our heart to open, and that includes our subjective personal will and experience of life, in life, as life. As I mentioned, the beautiful Tibetan prayer flags, these colors of the rainbow here, that in that way that these colors are resonant, we could say scientifically, right, molecularly, chemically, that there's an objective truth, to the frequency of each color and how it relates, to the objective world, but also subjectively, right, our personal experience. And it reminds me of this memory and this and that the healing in this is that the joy in this is the inclusivity, that we're all of that is okay, and all of that is meant to be, and all of that is included, in my work, and in my being, in my heart. And that, like I said, this is more of an invitation, but then out of respect and sanity, I'm not there to say what is next for you, even though you're being invited, what could be that next moment or series of moments, in the inevitable future for you. And that how exciting, and that we are, to sum it up, we could say we are meant to be, that this one person who's never going to be here again is meant to be, and we are all them. So in that way, that joy can have so many connotations and so many implications, and that the beautiful thing about this video and potential workshop or presentation, public dialogue, satsang, is that it negates or gets rid of these many, many, many things that can get associated with that obviously positive, desired needed aspect of creation that is just joy itself, Joy, and that healing in the purpose-driven nature of it, but to be unassuming and respectful that this is nowhere in any way a pushing onto you at all, and that in that way, but you can start to sense, this revelation in yourself and understand, more naturally and even we could say super consciously through this focus, you know and that you'll notice that, as I said earlier, Reiki, to use an example, isn't a religion, and that none of this is swerving or swaying our vehicle, our self, our life, our mind, our heart, our soul in any direction. We could say, and the most serious swerve would be what? A religious one. So noticing that that isn't present, in this video, and that, the point of this is a settling in or a relaxation, in the sense that knowing my role, knowing my purpose, as a sole individual, is to provide that, professionally, to facilitate growth and awareness that enables us in a bigger picture, way, yeah. And I, can't help but smile authentically, as I also put in this description of this video, which I hope people are enjoying and share, that authenticity, right? If we go to the seemingly sensical, common sense opposite of this potentially harassing experience of someone swerving or attempting to swerve or sway us out of our lane, in our vehicle, in our lifetime that no one else is in, no matter how we're feeling, right now, that being a harassing or hurtful experience, manipulative, and that I'm very proud that I don't have any of that in my being, even though I am technically a religious person. But in that way, so that basically this swerving and the swaying comes about in the authenticity or the expression of a natural way, a natural self, natural being. As I mentioned in my first video, on the top of my website, joevertino.org, there's a video where I have a beautiful white sweater and the same prayer flags are in it. And it's called My Story. And I talk about this connection to pure being that I had when I was a child. And also very much an obvious contentment happened. And that in that way that, as I did mention, this video is an invitation. There's an invitational energy, which does make sense, of course, that there is a need implied, a desire, a craving in the declared title of it, the joy and healing. And that's this motion, right? An invitation. We could say into our own heart. And that in that way, that moment of silence that I just shared with myself, with you, with everybody here on this beautiful public video online, is a kind of maybe a grounding of that invitation, right? So that invitation being something of a sincere authenticity that happens to be resonant with this area, right? We call our heart, our center. And in that way, that to remind us of the title, that it's okay to allow this to be a joyful experience, to be content, is like a miracle, to think that someone would become content from a video that they found online, right? That there was no other strings attached to that experience, is like a miracle. And we deserve that miracle. We deserve to experience this And I'll even say it in that way, this being life, we deserve to experience life the way that it is meant to be. And that, forgive me, but to mention a beautiful man, Jesus Christ, who gets associated with religion, of course, and with the ascended masters and spirituality, the spiritual heart, communion with truth, coming, perfect perfection and goodness and lack of sin, lack of confusion. So in that way, be selfish in a positive way and allow yourself to soak this in without feeling offended, feeling offended by a name and a person and a human history and a beautiful art, right? And in that way, there's a growth, that we can start to tune into the tree and the roots of it, so to speak, in ourself. And that even though this video is coming to an end, our life and our soul isn't. And as I said, you matter. And there's a glory, just like the glorious mysteries, in the rosary, in just you and me and the universe. Yippee. And isn't it authentic? Isn't it sincere? Isn't it real? Isn't it passionate like the Christ? That, we deserve and that we may not yet know, but we are in the process of knowing. That there is an excitement and an energy, Reiki being universal energy. We know there's a universe. We know that energy is also here and real. But Reiki is something we could say entirely different, but also included in the sense that it causes healing. The universe doesn't particularly cause healing. Energy on its own doesn't particularly cause healing. But we sure can, and Reiki does, in the sense of giving someone a hug, a bow, and all of that is what? Based on authenticity, So if you, to connect, technically all of the dots, and that truth is something that is calling to us, but the reason it's calling to us is what I'm sharing with you. So, in that way, through my smile and my teeth and my Leo grin and posture and everything, I can't help but side with it being serious, and can't help but side with it, for the sake of everyone's true growth. And we do deserve that, the truth. So anyways, we're about 23 minutes into this potential workshop, which I pray that you do reach out to me about. The Joy in Healing by Dr. Joe Vertino, joevertino.org. Highly recommend, beautiful website. But yes, so in that way, the other thing about healing, the first thing I mentioned of the important things was inclusion, right? And I gave some gestures like this, and then also the connect the dots to remind you the objective world and the subjective world are all okay. And we can allow that in that okayness, that acceptance, there's an inclusivity that happens, right? So going on to another important thing would be the path. So right now I'm sitting still. My butt's been on a chair for 24 minutes. You're probably sitting still. Your butt's probably been on a chair for 24 minutes or longer. And that in that way, that position of our body reflects a certain kind of condition and context of life. So to mention its opposite in the sense of our feet and what they're about, and our hands and what they're about. And I think of there's a technically perfect word for it. So out of respect, I'll use this word, even though it's not English. The word is dharma, D-H-A-R-M-A, dharma. It's a Buddhist word that means one's true purpose. So if we understand, maybe now, right, you understand my point about the butt and chair and feet and hands, and that basically that life even though we may not know everything or sometimes seem like we don't know anything, parked in a parking lot or something for a little bit. But in that way, that basically, as I mentioned, this being an invitation and a calling, now we can start to feel and sense into the truth of it, the answer at the end of that phrase, right? That being our true purpose. And that in no way is it true that the joy and healing, this being in that realm of healing, would exclude that, right? That it would exclude our Dharma, that it's not the truth of our reality, of our universe. And that as we shed layers, to use a visceral snake like animal nature word, shed the layers, we could say, of our past and also our present illusions, right? That this purpose based on truth and life inherently starts to come about. And we're ready for it. Our heart goes, I'm ready. So in that way, it's not possible for anyone else to have that experience. And that to go back to my original point, to wrap up here in this beautiful potential workshop, that you will not regret, reaching out to me about, that the first thing I said here in the beginning of this video, the joy in healing with Dr. Joe, was understanding our own nature of beauty. And I'll quote from my first book, My Own Religion, The Power of Love, available to order at Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com and on joevertino.org, a beautiful manifesto. There's a chapter in there called, what is it? The Importance of Beauty. And I put in there a little kind of leave alone phrase that beauty is the core of all relationships. And in that way, we can start to allow this, maybe we could say, a spiritual mind to expand, to take root in us. So thank you so much. And also know that in this potential workshop that you can hire me for anywhere in the world or online, there, of course, can be, like I said, question answering, dialogue, and guided meditation and or music, all just by me, facilitated by me for a reasonable price, and I'm very, very excited and ready, knowing, to share here that this is my true purpose, that you're witnessing, whether you know it or not, that you're witnessing someone's Dharma, someone's true purpose unfolding, in front of you with these beautiful color flags the whole time. Aren't they gorgeous? So I am so grateful, for my gift and for your ears, for you and your eternal soul, and Reiki, the white light of God, the white light of creation, the universal energy, which is my modality, which as an expert, a doctor in the field of medicine, I am honored to share and declare here at the end. Thank you. Please don't be shy. Comment, share this video wherever you want, any of my content, and me. I would love to connect in any kind of way, and know that you are loved and cared for by Dr. Joe Vertino. Angel blessings. Thank you so much.